So now we are ready here with our startups, with the mentors, and with our hosts. So now we are going to meet startups in food tech who are working towards non-animal protein and are working for the future of food. The startups presented today are Steen Boren, board business development manager and member of board of directors of Foods, Champagne, the biotech innovator and entrepreneur. We have John Patterson with Culture Decadence, CEO and co-founder of the startup. The jury is composed by Rajni Aneja, Managing Director of the Cornell Institute for Food Systems, Serwan Werner, Head of Computational Fluid Dynamics in ZOTS Life Sciences, and Luis Enjo Fernandez, Biochemist and Vice President of Strategic Development of Flavor. And our host today is Aina Aurora. And it's amazing to have you here today, guys. So, Aina, please take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. I'm very, very excited for all the companies that you're going to get to see today. I'm personally a very, very big believer in the future of food tech, and I think you're going to get to see some really amazing upcoming technologies today. So without further ado, since this is really about the companies themselves and sharing what they have to bring to the board, we'll start with Stein from Avicom. You'll have 3 minutes roughly to present, and then we'll have about a 10-minute Q&A with the mentors, and it'll just be an open dialogue. So I'm very excited to see what you have all to share today.
Thanks a lot. I will share a short presentation. I guess this is visible for the audience. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, hello, my name is Stijn Boeren, as mentioned, co-owner and business developer of Avicom from Belgium in Europe. Thank you for the opportunity to present today our sustainable protein platform technology. Because of the growing population and changing consumer behavior, the need for alternative protein is rising, and future protein shortages will be aggravated by a drop in land and water availability. In addition, the use of soy and fish meal and the production of animal proteins have extremely high environmental footprints because they are strongly related with intensive deforestation, eutrophication, and overfishing. More than 80% of the nitrogen used is lost to the environment. Therefore, the industry asks for new, sustainable, and affordable proteins that do not compete with the human food chain and that improve animal welfare. Avicom's innovation is the production of single-cell protein originated from green energy, therefore called power-to-protein, a disruptive technology for producing valuable proteins for the eco-oriented human food industry. We make use of single-cell microorganisms that naturally consume hydrogen gas and oxygen gas, both derived from green electricity by means of electrolysis, and the third gas, the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide, to produce a biomass rich in protein and vitamin B12. And then subsequent drying of the biomass will produce a powder that can be further applied as food ingredient. The power-to-protein process uses its additional resources like nitrogen without any loss to the environment and is a net consumer, not an emitter of carbon dioxide. Our protein-rich and animal-free high-quality food ingredient is the most sustainable in terms of energy, material, and land use, and our fermentation is free of pesticides, hormones, and antibiotics. But we also obtain a bigger economic benefit because of the independency of import. There's a rising interest from consumers in non-meat-based protein sources, and power-to-protein combines all sustainability aspects as explained with a microorganism-based production possible at a large scale and at competitive costs. Alternative proteins like our single-cell protein are still a niche market, but sizable and fast-growing, and we strongly believe in its disruptive market potential. Avicom has worked since 2015 on the process development. Our background research has been protected by several granted patents in Europe, and today our technology produces 1 kilogram of protein per day, and we are ready for further scale-up. We target 2025 for the commercial launch of the ingredient. Our company Avicom was founded by Professor Willy Verstraete and is a spin-out company of the University of Ghent. Nowadays, we are an independent and experienced SME active in new process development. Avicom is a reliable partner that has successfully put on the market several products and processes. So, in order to be ready for commercialization in 4 years, we plan the construction of a new demo plant to further fine-tune our process at larger scale and to start up the EU novel food application procedure, which is required. We are actively looking for co-investors, preferably with added value expertise. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your feedback and questions. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. I think we can open up the floor to questions. So if any of the mentors have something that's on top of mind for them, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have one question. Steen, thank you and congratulations for all the work. I live in Belgium for 10 years, so I know the country and the culture, so very like to see this innovation. So I'm a strong believer on open innovation partnership. You have to move from now to the final commercialization of the product. What do you believe that is now the best partner that you will fit well on the next step? Is an equipment producer, is another B2B, is a B2C, is an academia? What will be the best partner right now?
Well, we, as Avicom, are really looking into industrial collaborations. So the objective of Avicom is not to build full-scale plants ourselves, but we are looking into smart collaborations with the food industry that are willing to use our technology that we are developing. So we focus, of course, on scaling up to let's say, a demo scale, and to prove that the concept is working, that we can deliver a high-quality protein for human food consumption. We also want to take care of all the regulatory requirements to tackle that, especially in Europe in novel food, and there is still a step to be taken. But once all that is done, is ready, yeah, we want to obtain a really fast scale up, and that is by doing that by industrial collaborations of B2B.
And I say that because many times new protein like this one can be combined with other more known crops that is very traditional in Europe, and then depending on how the labeling will be accepted in the European countries, but the combination of multiple protein can be, or do you consider it should be the single cell solution pure in the application?
No, the smart combination of proteins or with other products is of course a possibility. Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's true.
Thank you. I leave the forum for the other mentors. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I really enjoyed hearing what you're doing. I did have a couple of questions, and maybe you can clarify a little bit. Did I hear correctly that you are looking at potentially building scale-up capacity, and that's part of your investment thesis at this stage? Is that, I know there's a lack of scale-up capabilities globally. Is that particularly the case where you're located in Europe that's necessitating this?
Well, we have now a pilot scale plant that produces 1 kilogram per day. What we want to do in the next step is at least be able to produce 10 kilogram per day, which we call then a demo scale plant. We want to do that ourselves because, of course, the core of the knowledge and the technology is the fine-tuning of the gas fermentation step itself, the fermenter, and all things that are attached to that. So that is really the core expertise of Avicom, on which we focus, of course, from a technological point of view.
Okay. And is that where your IP resides as well?
Sorry, again, I did not say.
Is that where your intellectual property assets are as well?
Yeah, exactly. IP is strongly focusing on the gas fermentation step itself. That's true, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Could you, I have one follow-on question, and then I'll let the other mentor chip in. You mentioned that there are regulatory hurdles that you're going to have to address. Do you have a sense of where you are likely to be able to get regulatory clearance the most quickly? And even there, what are the hurdles you're going to have to address?
Well, we focus on the European market, first of all, and that is a market that we know very well, of course. We are based in Belgium, which means the EFSA novel food is for single-cell protein a case. But of course, we are in close contact with local authorities and with at the European level, of course, to prepare everything and to get approval, of course, in the shortest delay possible. But in a very realistic point of view, yeah, that will take at least us 2 years, based on the data that has to be done. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you view that as being the fastest versus Australia or the US or Canada. We hear so much that the regulatory hurdles in Europe are particularly high. Are there other alternatives, or is it still going to be the easiest way for you to get to market?
Yeah, we know that Europe is not the easiest way to move forward, but it can also be an asset in the future, because everything has to be then looked over into detail. And once you get the approval for Europe, we believe that, yeah, of course, a fast scale up worldwide will be very easy. So we see it more as an asset than that it is a drawback for us.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Sting, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, great. So I'm quite curious on an energy balance or something like that, energy nitrogen balance. Do you have done that, and could you share that with us in comparison to other comparable protein sources?
Well, we used basically two energy sources. We produce hydrogen gas and oxygen gas based on electrolysis. We know quite well how much of hydrogen we have to put into the process to produce 1 kilogram of protein. And then, of course, the next step, but that I think is the case for a lot of alternative proteins, especially in fermentation, is of course the drying step of the product, because we harvest a biomass that is a liquid that after centrifugation still needs to be dried, because in a lot of applications people will demand a dry protein powder to use that in their specific applications. But yeah, we did of course an LCA analysis. We looked into the energy consumption overall. We also believe that from an industrial point of view, there are always clever inputs to be done. We can recover waste heat from a factory to lower the net energy consumption of the drying process. So overall, this is not a very consuming process as such.
And the Steen, you say 70% protein. What is the rest? Carbohydrate, fiber. What is on top of lipids?
Yeah, it's a bit of all of that. So basically, we have single-cell microorganisms. We harvest them completely. We do not extract the amino acids out of the product. We dry the completed biomass, which means that it's 75% of proteins, and the rest is, of course, the cells itself of the microorganisms and everything that is annexed. Yeah.
And the target application is sweet, savory. What will be the target main application that you are looking for?
At the moment, we do tests with a food ingredient producer in Belgium that looks up as of today to 2 different applications. That is, first of all, protein enrichment of products, a product that has a specific protein content, but they want to add some extra protein, and that will then be the sustainable alternative for other alternative protein sources that they could do. And the second one is, of course, a clear replacement of animal-based protein by our single-cell protein.
So animal protein, you mean meat or dairy?
Yeah, meat, first of all. We made, for instance, chicken nuggets without the chicken, so that is really then a clear meat replacement.
Any particular of note or taste that you would like to improve still?
Well, it's a single-cell protein as we produce. It's quite neutral from taste and flavor. So it does not bring a lot of functionality and a specific flavor. So that are things that need to be worked on in the final product. So we as really a clean and clear and sustainably very good but basic protein alternative.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So just to close things out, I think it'd be a great note to end on if you could share more about what an ideal partner would look like, since you did mention that you're looking to scale up your technology with a partnership. I would love to hear what type of a company or partner they are, and what they would ideally bring to the table for you.
Yeah, so we are looking into collaborations with the food industry, basically. Yeah, so the Avicom is really focusing on developing the technology from a really scientific point of view, with of course a big protection of the IP. That is important, and that we clear the regulatory path. And then we are looking into the big food companies that wants to collaborate with us, and that want to use the protein as a third pillar of protein in their industry. And next to the meat-based and the plant-based alternatives, we will come with a microbial and very sustainable alternative.
Got it. So you're thinking more that you're not just the ingredient producer, but they would then license your technology and be able to produce.
Yeah, we license out the technology, exactly. Yeah.
Clear. Okay, great. Awesome. Do any of the other mentors have any other last burning questions they would like to ask?
There is a good question in the chat about the PDCAS score. I suppose that is quite high on this protein. The amino acid composition is a complete protein.
It's a complete protein. Yeah, it was shown on the slide. Maybe it was not presented very long time, but it's really completed amino acid that is very comparable with plant-based and meat-based.
Or meat and dairy.
Yeah, even meat. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Steen. Next up, we will have FiberWorks Foods to share what they're working on.
And good luck for the.
Good morning. Yep. Yeah. So can you see my screen? Can everyone see my screen yet?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, we're still on the ProteinX page for now.
Oh. On my screen, it's the first slide that's just a picture of a few tanks. Is that what you see, or is it a different slide?
No, it's still showing up the actual video that we're in. It's kind of Inception. You might just have to reshare your screen. Yeah.
Okay, let me do that again. Okay, maybe I'll do the PDF file. That's probably. All right. Can everyone see the slide? Okay, good. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Chen-Fan Lu, the founder and CEO of FiberWorks Foods. So today I'm excited to tell you more about our company and the technology. You probably have heard of growing chicken or beef without the animal in a bioreactor. But can you imagine growing chicken or beef without animal cells and at a cost that everyone can afford? At FiberWorks, we are developing animal-free, precision fermentation-based meat for food companies and pet food companies. So from this symposium, everybody already knows the problem of meat consumption. It's bad for your health. It's bad for the health of our planet, and it also faces tremendous supply chain issues. as a result, many companies has been formed recently to come up with new meat alternatives. And if we think about the meaty taste, there are three key components to it. One of them, and they are shaped like pyramid. At the top is the blood. The best known company out there is Impossible. They're making a heme-based burger that really mimics the meat taste and color. And in the middle of that pyramid is the animal fat. And quite a few companies were tackling this problem mostly through the cellular agriculture route. And the base of this pyramid is the animal protein. There are a lot of companies in this space, but most of them are making this animal protein through a cellular agriculture approach. And Fiberworks is probably world's only company that's using a precision fermentation approach to make the meat protein. So there are a lot of these meat alternatives, and they vary quite a bit in taste and cost. And among these, plant-based protein is probably most further along in terms of their commercialization. But they're also facing challenges such as the texture and the complex labeling and nutrition. So at Fiberworks, we aim really strive to improve this plant-based protein by supplement it with a real meat protein. And this is how our process works. Muscle protein coated DNA will be synthesized and put in the edible microbial host, and we grow this protein up through a fermentation process. And this muscle protein will be harvested and cross-linked with plant-based proteins for food companies and pet food companies. And as a result, this will be a lower cost, clean, low scalability, scalability challenge, and nutritious product, and that growth can be done in days rather than weeks and months. So the advantage of Fiberworks is really threefold. One is that we are the world's first company to develop a recombinant muscle protein-based food ingredient. We are in this unique IP position. And recently, we also developed a self-assembly mediated protein purification downstream process. And the result is that we can purify this protein to over 90% purity, really, without the need of using columns, which will save the capital cost. And finally, the yeast and bacteria culture medium are affordable and the growth are fast. And our ultimate mission is to replace meat. So it's $1 trillion market, and there's also huge market share in the pet food industry. And our business model is B2B, serving pet food companies and food companies. And our market strategy is launch microbes based ingredient in 2 years and a fungus mycelium based product in 3 to 5 years. This is our R&D strategy is in 3 phases. Currently, we're in the phase 2 of making this fermentation-based muscle protein from yeast and bacteria. And the company was incorporated last year. This year, our main goal is really to scale up our production to, we already surpassed grams, so our next goal is to go to about 100 grams kind of scale. And we aim to get to cash flow positive by 2027. And recently we got some really exciting results from the lab. On the left, the picture on the left shows you that the raw protein is on the top and the cooked is in the bottom. So when we cook the raw protein, it turns from a translucent color kind of to a white color, and the texture is really close to the actual meat. So we're quite excited about our product. And when you cook it, it sears, it shrinks and curls, just like actual meat will do. And we are a small team of experienced scientists and entrepreneurs, and our advisors has a lot of experience in muscle protein biochemistry. Currently, our funding is coming from Brink Accelerator and National Science Foundation, and we're truly in exciting times of this alt protein industry, and we're looking for strategic partners that have fermentation capabilities. We're also raising pre-seed rounds to develop the technology and scale up our fermentation. We're excited about this and looking forward to work with a lot of you to advance this industry. Okay,
Awesome. Thank you, Chengfeng.
and happy to answer the questions that you might have.
Great. So we'll dive right in. Mentors, what's burning on your minds?
Thank you, Chen-Fen. Great presentation. I will be asking a clarifying question because I may be confused. This is real animal-free or is slaughter-free? Because still you have animal cell, no? So or animal muscle protein. So can you really claim animal-free or is slaughter-free?
Yes. So yes, it's animal cell-free. So cultivated meat use stem cells, so they still have animal cells, but we are using microbial cells. We don't have any animal in the process at all. We don't have animal cells. We don't have anything animal related except for animal DNA, which we synthesize in a lab that doesn't touch any animal. So we basically the whole process is completely animal-free.
Except the gene, but is not a problem.
Right, except for the gene, which we synthesize in the lab and without touching an animal.
Okay, and what is the target market that you are looking to launch a product like this?
Sure, so the target, our beachhead product will be to replace additives and gelling agents in the plant-based meat protein, which is a significant cost for the plant-based protein. So by cross-linking our fermentation-based animal protein, we can reduce and replace those additives. And in the long term, we plan to produce muscle protein genes directly in the genome of fungus, so that we can directly make a product out of mycelium. And that market will be the market for basically plant-based protein or
okay, but in what region of the world you would start?
A new protein ingredient.
What will be the first area or region of the world that you may launch this? Will it be a global launch or will it be a region?
Sorry, I think it's probably my connection. Your sound break up, so I didn't hear.
If the Steen mentioned Europe as the target, in your case, what would be the region that you propose as the first launch? Is Asia, US?
I still didn't hear. Sure. Geography wise, we are really striving to be a global company. So we really would like to supply our protein as an ingredient to global food companies in Europe, Asia, North America, South America.
Okay, thank you, Chen-Fen.
Chen-Fen,
thank you for your question.
Is it considered to be a GMO product then? If you mentioned Europe as a market, I'm wondering if you put DNA sequence to microbial and extract the protein, whether this is in GMO.
Right. So yeah, the process uses recombinant technology, but actually we purify this protein out. So the resulting protein will be recombinant organism free. So it will be GMO free, the protein itself, but it is through recombinant technology.
Okay. And do you have any idea on a comparison to the original protein? So if you take a sequence and express it in a microbial, can you compare that to the original sequence expressed in an animal cell?
Sure, yeah. So it should be identical to the animal protein in terms of amino acid sequence.
Ah, very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you.
Hi, that was a great presentation, Chengfei. I really enjoyed hearing what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's a great application of fermentation technology that is well understood, but with a really novel application. One thing you mentioned, though, was about cross-linking to plant proteins. Could you tell us a little bit about the rationale behind that and why that's needed versus just making the muscle protein on its own?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so the main reason is that that way we can really reinforce the texture of the plant-based proteins. It could be also fungi-based, mycelium-based products. It's really to reinforce the texture and structure of the product.
Okay, so if you wanted a protein that didn't need that structural element, something like albumin, from egg white, could you do that without the cross-linking?
Yes, yeah, we can cross-link that with like albumin as well. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. In terms of scale up and getting to enough product for feasibility testing with somebody who's making who wants to use these kinds of proteins, how far away are you from that? I mean, we saw your timeline very quickly, but could you talk about when could somebody who wants to test these get them in their hand and make some real evaluations?
Sure, yeah, right now we're still at bench scale. We can make maybe tens of grams of product. So really we aim to scale up our production to a pilot scale probably towards the end of this year so that we can supply the potential customers or other folks our product. Yeah. So yeah, this year, later this year, and definitely next year. Yeah.
Yeah, I may miss something on the fat part that you presented in your deck. So, do you plan also to have, as you have the muscle protein, a fat tissue created by the microorganism or the cell?
That will be probably our longer-term goal. Our short-term is just going to be focusing on the protein. But that's a great point. The fat is very interesting.
So in the target application, you would combine with vegetable fat and the protein that you have?
Precisely.
What kind of fat?
Yeah, like palm oil.
Palm oil?
Oh, like palm. Yeah, probably. Yeah, not that novel.
There is a question in the chat about the amino acid profile again on the compared to raw egg white.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so this will not be similar to the egg white, but rather it's similar to the meat. Really, it's pretty close to to the meat protein sequence.
Great. So just to wrap things up, I think it'd be great to hear, to get to the next level, what types of partnerships or investments are you looking for? Are there specific types of people you're looking to work with? Are you currently raising? I think would be great to end on that note.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're raising a pre-seed round of probably around $1 million. And we're looking to partner with food companies, particularly those food companies with fermentation capabilities. But we're quite flexible.
And what will be the expected labeling that you consider will be accepted?
That's a good question. So this will be a protein ingredient that's similar to the animal protein, really, but it is made from recombinant technology. So it really depends on the geography. And yeah, we expect we have to go through some sort of regulatory approval.
What is your best desire labeling? If you have to pick up one that you really would like to have accepted, which one would be?
Oh, like natural, a natural protein, free of antibiotics, animal-free.
That will be like a claim.
Etc.
Okay,
oh, sure.
But a single one, a short kind of name for the labeling.
That will be animal-free, probably.
Animal-free protein? That will be the ideal.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chengfeng. We're going to move on to our last venture of the day, and definitely not the least.
So and good luck for the future, Chengfeng. Thank you.
Great. Next up, we have culture decadence.
Great. I just want to make sure that it's sharing my title slide.
Not yet.
Nothing still?
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay, great. My name is John Pettison. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Culture Decadence, and we are a Madison, Wisconsin-based cell culture meat company. And what that means is that we're developing real seafood, in our case, focusing in on lobster right from the animal cells using cell culture and tissue engineering techniques. Our team is highly experienced in this field. My co-founder and I were previously at 2 other cell culture meat companies, and our current team has backgrounds in genetics, tissue engineering, cell biology, as well as food, product, and marketing. The market that we're targeting is the crustacean meat market, as well as other industrial products that come off of crustaceans. This market initially is valued at $20 billion, and then once we apply our system across all different types of crustaceans and products, including food and other industrial applications, you're looking at a well over $100 billion market worldwide. The problem that we're solving for is really centered around the supply chain, and there's 3 main issues. Unlike shrimp or fish, crabs and lobsters and several other types of crustaceans can't actually be aquacultured on land. And so the supply that we have in the ocean today is what we'll have going forward, and those oceans under constant environmental threat and change, whether it's increased acidification or warming ocean temperatures, like the case of the Gulf of Maine. Second, the animals themselves are really inefficient at producing delicious meat. For example, a 1-pound lobster that's typically about 5 to 7 years old only yields about 3 to 4 ounces of meat. So very inefficient way to actually get that delicious food. And finally, you have a lot of complex logistics because of the centralized nature of these fisheries in the Northeast or Northwest here in the United States. And so having to harvest and process those animals and distribute them around the country and around the world adds a lot of uncertainty, increased cost, and decreased access for consumers all over the place. The solution is creating the meat right from the animal cells and doing it in a decentralized way, basically here in the Midwest, 1,000 miles from the nearest ocean. And the way that we do that is, first, we take the best animals that we can find. We then conduct a biopsy of their tissue to isolate specific cells of interest. We then would grow those cells up in a bioreactor, giving them all the same nutrients that they get in the wild. And then from there, we would harvest it and put it into a form factor that makes sense for consumers to use, whether that's in restaurants with chefs, or food manufacturing, or at home for regular retail consumers to use. And important to note here that this process at scale would only take weeks or perhaps a couple months instead of the years and decades that it often takes for these animals to get to size. Two big advantages for us. One, simple, that is primarily composed of muscle cells. Fish or other types of terrestrial protein where you have muscle and fat, connective tissue, skin and bones, makes for a delicious eating experience, but very difficult to replicate from a research and development standpoint. And second is the price point. So because of those supply constraints that I mentioned earlier, we have a relatively high price point to hit compared to other cell culture meat companies.
John, you might have to reshare your screen. We kind of lost you for a second, so stop sharing.
Okay. Try this again. Is it back? Okay, great. So I was going over the commercial and R&D advantages for us relative to the other cell culture meat companies. And then looking at our commercialization strategy, initially we want to be a supplier of lobster and crab meat that goes into raviolis and bisques and soups and dips. And then ultimately, once we have a greater ability to produce more complex products and also greater acceptance from the market, we'll go into DTC retail product offerings as well. What we're really excited about is the work that we've been doing over the last year. And last summer, we prototyped lobster cell biomass in our labs here in Madison, Wisconsin. And what was really exciting about this is that there's no plant-based fillers or anything like this in the prototype you see on the right. And it crisped up very nicely, had that nice Maillard reaction, and tasted quite good as well. So right now we have just raised our initial pre-seed round of funding of 1.6 million, including some small government grants, and we're looking to further develop our prototype and look to develop our technology from this point. And I'd be remiss to mention the team that we have working here in Madison every day, trying to create the future of seafood. And I think I also want to highlight today that it's World Ocean Day, and so this is particularly exciting for us to present here at ProteinX for the.
Great, thank you, John. We'll open up the floor to questions.
Yeah, great presentation, John. Very, very exciting. But your message is very clear. So it's sustainable source of protein, is clean and under control, but still is an animal protein, right? So you are not in the space of the vegetable, plant-based. It's sustainable, clean, and friendly for animals as well, source of animal protein, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and then affordable cost is also, you mentioned as well, so that will be for a more food service type of product or branded supermarket product?
So initially, we want to go B2B and sell into food service and food manufacturing. The price that I said there, about $75 a pound, is the retail price point for just lobster meat. If you were to look at the wholesale prices, they fluctuate anywhere from $30 to $40 a pound, depending on the quality and the type of cut meat that you're actually going after. So from that standpoint, quite a bit higher price point for us to hit to achieve parity or even be better relative to beef, chicken, pork, any other terrestrial or avian protein, or seafood for that matter.
And in terms of taste, you consider similar to the traditional product?
Yeah, the prototype that I showed there, we tasted it and tasted pretty good. It had a very mild flavor, which is kind of how naturally lobster tastes. It's not quite as robust as I think people normally associate with the lobster. It's often a lot of garlic and butter that enhances that. So right now we're working and prototyping further, and I think our ultimate goal is to create something that doesn't even exist in the market currently, and that would be infusing our cells, or on the cellular level, infusing a product with that increased fat content, right? Because when we think about crustaceans, the first that the animals aren't naturally having.
No, excellent. I think I like your focus because you selected carefully what kind of product you want to produce, because once you master the technology, you could go for other type of cell. You selected lobster and crab, something that is highly luxury as well, no, for the food market and to produce in a sustainable way. So very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, John. Thanks for the presentation. Very interesting. Since there are some connecting issues, I didn't get the main advantages you told us before. So I thought it's something about the texture. Can you repeat that? Texture is similar to the natural product. Is that right?
So on the R&D front, the target that we're trying to replicate is a relatively simple piece of muscle compared to primarily just trying to replicate muscle cells. Do we? Oh,
could you start over? It was.
No worries. So the point of that slide and what I was saying is that if you think about lobster muscle, it's primarily just muscle cells. There's not a.
Obviously, it's quite a secret, right?
I think the nature is something other.
Turn off my video. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah.
So what I try this a third time. What I was saying is this is primarily just muscle cells. There's not a lot of fat or connective tissue or tendons or bone or anything like that compared to terrestrial or avian proteins, and so that gives us an advantage from an R&D and product development standpoint.
Okay. Just to make sure that I was really getting it right. And the other thing, I saw that you used some culture media, and you stated that it was going down by 70%. Have you any idea on the cost? Can you share a range of costs per kilogram of lobster, which you are at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we've been able to drop our cost quite significantly from the beginning of the company about a year ago. We're still definitely more expensive than what it would cost to buy lobster normally, but we are making progress on that front, and definitely see a pathway to reducing media costs to a point where we are well below the price points that I talked about.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, John. That was just really a great presentation, and I love the concept of this being a sustainable mimic of a product that we all know and love, but is really a luxury in many instances. So not only would this be sustainable, but conceivably it could be more affordable and more accessible. I did have one question, which is, when you start the culture process, how cumbersome is that in terms of accessing your raw materials to seed the fermenter, I guess you do with your stem cells? And do you need to have that lobster or crab source on hand, and how do you maintain that? Can you talk a little bit about that process and the technical difficulties and costs involved?
Sure, yeah, definitely. So one of the challenges for the seafood space within the cell cultured meat world, and specifically in crustaceans, is there aren't any established or available lines. So we're doing a lot of line development in-house. with gold, even immortalized cell lines that would then eliminate the need to the animal to be a source of cells. So it animal again, if we had, when we have those cell populations, we could thaw them out, seed the reactor, and then just continue to proliferate and then ultimately differentiate them into the cell types and tissues that we would need to then create a food product.
That's really great, and I'm glad you're addressing that problem, because I worry about the scalability of the technology. If you're very dependent on harvesting a raw material to get the process started. But if you can get to a system where you're basing it off of an established cell line, that becomes much more scalable and duplicatable in other locations. So that's a great solution and pathway forward.
Exactly, yes. And it helps just with everything downstream from there, the media, any kind of bioprocessing that you're doing. So you have that predictability and knowledge of how the cells are going to behave.
And product consistency from batch to batch.
Curious to know the culture decadence, that name for the company. Can you explain why you selected that name? I don't know if it is my Spanish language background, but it doesn't sound very kind of positive, the decadence. So why that name?
So when we were looking at the company and starting it, we named as what is the core knowledge. That's how we got cultured. And then oftentimes people think of lobster crab as a decadent experience and decadent product. So that was one component of it. Really, I think probably more of our scientific minds were thinking more around the fact that the animals that we are focused in on are decapods. And so we wanted to highlight that aspect of it too, or tent-legged animals.
Okay, thanks.
That's great. So just to wrap things up, maybe it'd be great to hear what is something that the audience can help you with today to help you get to the next level?
Yeah, definitely. So we are always looking to make connections with potential investors for our next round of funding. Second, we are a partner with and start with people on the food side, whether that's distribution or private or on the research side, and plug for our team. We are currently hiring, and so if you know anybody in the space that is interested in food science or life science, biological science roles, bioinformatics, we're always looking to.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Great. So I think we had a very great session, and I personally learned a lot of new things, and I work very hands-on with a lot of ingredient companies every day. So it's always exciting to hear how different people are innovating for all the problems that we see and hear about within our communities. And I'm personally very excited to follow along their journey and see where they end up. On one last question and note that I'd like to end on, so we're making sure that we're connecting with each other. How would our startups and mentors like to be reached out to? Do you prefer email, LinkedIn? What's the best way for people here to get a hold of you?
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn for me as well. And I have a Calendly link in my LinkedIn as well, so you can always book time with me that way as well. And I do encourage all the companies to reach out. I mean, I'd love to sit down and do a little more brainstorming with you to see how we can help. I'll put in a shameless plug for Cornell, and that we have a really talented set of students and alumni who are always really interested in working in this space, and we can definitely help you with your hiring needs. But there may be other things that we can do as well.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining in. I'll hand it over to Anna and Tomas.
Thank you, Aina.
Yeah, thank you, Aina. Thank you to startups, the mentors. It was really good to see how your startups are working, and then seeing the feedback from the mentors and how we are all still developing, but always walking towards our global sustainable food system.